like this.
Oh my goodness. Hello. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Self-Care Sunday podcast.
Welcome back.
Woo!
We are your hosts, Shannon and Kyle. Welcome back to our spring semester version of this podcast. If you haven't met us yet, that means that you haven't heard all of our other episodes, which there's 4 of them that you can check out. And we would definitely recommend checking them all out.
Heck yeah. As a disclaimer, this podcast is not intended to be used in a place of therapy. If any activities or information from this podcast elicit a strong emotional response, please seek counseling by reaching out to the Counseling Services Center or your local mental health provider. Welcome to episode 5. Woo! Today, we will be talking about self-love.
And there is a lot to discuss. So we will be covering some of the difficulties, the stigmas associated with self-love. And I really think our goal is to help you find a way through this, navigating it in different ways. So we're trying out what we've called side quests throughout the podcast. Nice fancy background music and all. So for these, I just want to preface this by saying when we reach a side quest, it's a perfect time to pause the podcast. You can pick it back up, but just entertain some of the thoughts. If one catches your ear and you're like, oh, this would be worth exploring, maybe do a little journaling, maybe do a little creating, maybe do a little thinking, and then pick back up when you're ready. So just wanted to preface that so you're ready when they happen, because they will happen throughout.
Sure will. And you can always just rewind if you've missed one, Maybe write them down as they come along if you want to do it that way. I would probably, if I were listening to this, I would like to sit there and journal during the podcast. So I would pause, reflect, and then keep going. But also it might be a good idea to just write them all down and then do it after.
Definitely. Choose your own adventure.
Heck yeah. So our operational definition of self-love. I define self-love as your ability to show yourself kindness in the face of stress and adversity. Some unfavorable things happen to us in life, and it can be really difficult to handle. Oftentimes, we place the blame on ourselves, engage in self-deprecation, and just make ourselves feel generally terrible. So, self-love is something that allows us to separate ourselves from the situation at hand. We are worthy, we are good, we are loved. Sometimes we need to be our own biggest supporters instead of our own worst critics.
Powerful. Very, very powerful. And I would say, to add my operational definition of self-love as well, working with children for a long time, I feel like I see self-love so differently, because when you work with kids, they don't have all of those shoulds attached to them, right? Like, you should be this way, you should act this way. And I think that's a time when we really experience kind of like the raw, natural self-love. We are just curious about the world and ourselves and figuring things out. So I see self-love as grounded in this self-trust. You fully trust yourself and what you're doing, and it doesn't come with all of these other doubts or expectations of others. And then self-compassion, that you're just like human and full of these strengths and flaws, and no matter what, even through all of that, you are enough and worthy of love.
Absolutely. When you were talking about children and self-love, it made me think of that vine of that younger kid. And he's like, I love myself. Even though I look like a burnt chicken nugget, I still love myself.
Oh, so good.
Oh, I love kids. They're so funny.
So funny.
Well, here we are now. Warning, side quest alert. Prompt number 1. This is your first side quest that we're throwing at you. What do you think of when you hear the term self-love? And what does it mean to you? So again, I'll say that. What do you think of when you hear the term self-love? And what does it mean to you? So take a moment, pause, reflect, or you can just keep on going now.
And if you paused and now you're back, or if you didn't, that was just like a weird transition. Either way, you have prompt number 1.
I thought it was fun. Don't come at me, Kyle.
We're going to follow that up with a prompt number two right off the bat. So, after thinking about self love, what it means to you, I'd ask, well, when you think of how you treat your friends, family, the people you care about, what comes to mind? Because I think we treat people one way and sometimes we treat ourselves different. So, do you notice any similarities with how you would be loving, caring, compassionate to someone else and how you are to yourself? And do you pick up on any patterns in that? So, side quest number two, you got two, pause, and then you can come back.
So, welcome back. Now we are moving on to difficulties and stigmas. When we hear the term self love, our first reaction might be to cringe, physically, emotionally, or both.
Yeah.
um, Showing your self love can be seen as selfish or arrogant. I think this is because a lot of us typically engage in self deprecation and deny ourselves the feeling of pride. So, in a world where everyone
Yeah.
critiques us, um, in a world where everyone critiques us, it goes against the societal norm when we show ourselves love. Ultimately, members of society will intentionally or even unintentionally try to bring you down because of their own self pity and dislike, or just this overall pattern that we have of talking to ourselves negatively. I
Mm,
think a good example of this, um, my grandma is like one of the most important people in my life, if not like the most important person in my life. I love her. She is so wonderful, and she always makes me feel like just loved and happy. And one day we were talking on the phone and she called me cute. And I was like, I know I am cute. And, you know, normally I would never say that. But then I've been trying to say nice things about myself. So I'm like,
mhm,
yes, I am cute. And she was like, well, aren't you a little full of yourself? And I was like, no. If anything, it's kind of the opposite. Maybe I'm not really full of myself. So I said, yes, I am cute because A, I cannot take compliments. I am not good with that, but I'm
mm,
working on it because I deserve them.
mm,
So we had a conversation about that. And I was like, I'm not full of myself. Why would you say that? So, we have great conversations and she didn't mean any harm by it. She was just saying it, which was like an automatic response. So,
mhm,
just an
mhm,
example of even the people who care about you the most might unintentionally make you reconsider taking compliments like that or showing
mm,
yourself love.
mhm. Yeah. Oh man, I think of we do this like weird societal dance sometimes where you get a compliment from somebody and then you're supposed to be like, no, don't say that about me. That's not true.
Yeah.
And like brush it off. But it's strange because the whole point of why someone would say that is because like they meant it for you to receive. So
Yeah.
if you aren't receiving it, then of course, how is it going to sink in? How are you going to feel like self love and be accepting of what you've heard from other people? Because
Mm,
when you do brush it off so much, then it's really hard to know what to feel about yourself. Are you supposed to just never feel that love, kindness, compassion?
yeah.
And
It creates this like internal dialogue where you're split. Like part of you is like, okay, that made me feel good to hear, but then another part of you is like that made me uncomfortable to hear, and
mm,
there's that inner duality.
definitely. Oh yes, it's complicated because I feel like we have these we have these like rules around what we're allowed to feel and think about ourselves. And I think the danger that you were talking about too is that maybe sometimes people assume it makes them arrogant to
Mhm.
talk proudly about themselves, even though we also need to feel good about who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just like this endless cycle. So we feel
Mhm,
hesitant to express our pride in ourselves. And then when we do express pride in ourselves, people might try to speak doubt on our name or our plans, and make us feel maybe insecure about something we were feeling confident about. So then it's like
mhm,
just this weird aspect of like, I am proud, but I don't want to share it. But it's
mhm.
healthy to share things and like, there's
Yep.
so many issues.
Definitely. Oh, yes, it
You
is like
really
a
hate to
very
see it.
difficult cycle. Yeah, yeah. None of it feels great.
No.
Yeah, which I think, I mean, leads into the next one. I mean, working with people, having conversations about self-love, self-compassion, I hear so often that people feel like they don't deserve it. Like they haven't earned that feeling within themselves. And it just makes me think of like all the times where we think of love as conditional. Like you only receive love if you
Mhm.
meet the expectations of the people who love you, or um, do the right amount of work at your job, or like whatever, all the stuff that comes with this conditional care and like interest in what you're doing. So for people who really struggle with that, I think we've been taught to be highly critical of ourselves all the time from an early age, right? Like even in elementary school, look at what you're doing, find everything that's wrong with it, and make it better. But that really, really gets in the way of us just being okay with who we are in the moment as well. So, side quest number 3. Do you feel like there are conditions for receiving love from yourself? Do you have this kind of like barrier to say, well, when I've done this or when I feel this way, then I can love myself? And just notice what comes up when you think about that. So you can pause and then you're back.
I would like to add really quickly, you were just
Hmm,
talking about feeling like you don't deserve love and being taught to be critical and continue on the road of improvement. Um, Something that really sticks out to me here, even it's not like a self-love way, but just in the way we're taught how to learn, like taking tests when you were younger. It's like, okay, here, you failed this test, so now you have to sit with that failure and move on. And like, with those strict teachers who don't allow retakes, like that's not the point of learning. But that knowledge of like, okay, here, I've taken a test and then I did things wrong, so now I can't fix it and I'm stuck with that. That
mhm,
mindset translates into a lot of different aspects of our lives, which is like very unhealthy. So
mhm,
if
mhm,
you mess up, that doesn't mean that you're just always going to mess up and you're stuck having that faulty like thought process or making those bad decisions. You can improve and you can love yourself. It's just like
mhm.
you're taught not to in all aspects of life.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I do think it plays out in so many different realms of our life as well.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of shapes like how we seek love, how we look for love, what love even feels like, because it does change shape depending on some of those early experiences.
What would love look like to you? What shape is it?
Hmm, that's a good question. I guess that's an impromptu side quest for you all, but
Yeah, I just thought of this. I think my love would be in the shape of a cat.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a nice one. Oh,
Because,
I
like,
don't know.
I don't know. Think about it because throughout my life, I think all the times that I've known that I've been receiving unconditional love were from animals,
Hmm.
specifically
Hmm.
all cats.
That's true. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess dogs kind of fit my realm of love as well, because that is an unconditional love as well.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. For all you creatives out there, feel free, make your own vision of what that looks like for yourselves. Cool. And that leads me to like, I guess my last point about this idea of like stigma and kind of what gets in the way. Sometimes I think we think that love has to come from other people. Um, like we live in a culture where sometimes we seek relationships to help like complete that sense of love. Like we can't love ourselves until we've proven that someone else loves us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for a lot of people, they end up going like relationship hopping. They get into these like serial monogamy, like continuing on and on and on to find a love that is promoting of self-love or
Yeah.
allows us to love ourselves. But sometimes it ends in disappointment because we're receiving it from somebody else, but we don't feel it ourselves. And I think that has to be somewhat balanced.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. I think it always ends in disappointment because the real hard truth here is that you need to love yourself and know your worth and appreciate yourself before you can engage in any sort of healthy relationship. Even if you are in a healthy relationship, but you have a lot of like self-love issues and you're just lacking in that department, there are aspects of it that will become unhealthy or that just are unhealthy. You can get lost in these relationships that you're entering in to seek some sort of comfort, and it's just like you're preoccupied with caring about someone else or loving someone else that you are using it as a distraction
Mhm.
from loving yourself and truly getting to know yourself. And I think that is the problem with this idea that you have to be in a relationship to be happy, or there's like a certain level of success ascribed to you if you are in a committed relationship. Like, that's not how that works.
Mhm. Yeah,
You have to be in a
definitely.
relationship with you.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that is so crucial because I think when we get to that point of self acceptance, it's so much easier to make really authentic, healthy connections with other people because it isn't dependency in the same way, right? Like you're not dependent on someone else's external validation or external love. Um, like you can be okay on your own as well. It's just
Yeah.
nice to have a companion who also feels that way.
Yeah, because you can be okay with someone, but you
Mhm.
also have to be okay separately together, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think it's interesting that you asked that question that prompted me to say, well, what does love look like for you? What shape is it for you? Because it's like you said, the idea that love has to come from other people is something that's an issue. And so the fact that like my shape of love is like a cat, like ideally, I think eventually my shape of love would look like me.
Mhm. 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 Yep. Yeah, definitely. It becomes like a self-portrait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. I
That
like
was
that.
cool. That was really cool. That just happened in real time, folks. That was not scripted.
I like it. Oh, that
I
makes so
like
much
this a
sense.
lot. This is a fun philosophy. I think we should run
Mhm.
with this again sometime.
Mhm. There might be more depth to explore here.
Certainly.
Very cool. All right. So moving into our positive coping mechanisms portion of the show. We haven't actually fine-tuned the nice theme songs, but I assure you they'll be coming.
Absolutely.
So number one, I'm going to start with a very simple practice called a loving kindness meditation. And some people use this long term. Some people just like having the affirmation to be able to speak to themselves with this. But it's just to tap into that inner resource of love and kindness, compassion for yourself. So very simple. You can repeat these. I would recommend writing them down so that you can say them back to yourself as well. But it's always nice to fall back on. So it goes, may I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. And I'll say it one more time in case you're writing. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. And I think just that kind of messaging to yourself, it helps to ingrain it internally. And you start to rely a lot more on those inner resources to tap into it. And just notice when you say it to yourself, what do you feel? Where do you feel it? Um, and then as you continue to do that, maybe make space for it throughout the day. Maybe there are times when you just need a breather. That's a good thing to say. Calm yourself down, ground yourself a little bit, but just be with yourself and see how it goes.
Yeah, you can definitely use it as like a good reset throughout the day. Or maybe you're in a situation where you don't really feel safe. So then you can say,
Mhm,
may I be safe? You know, you can pick and
mhm.
choose.
Yep.
Speaking of talking to yourself, I talk to myself all the time, every day. Which I just recently learned that people think in different ways. So, like, some people, like myself, have an internal monologue, or like you hear, like, you're talking to yourself in your head, and other people don't do that.
Mhm.
And I was like, hello? Me?
Wait,
And
what?
I was like, oh, okay. So, this is interesting. Um, I have an internal monologue. It just keeps going. But I talk to myself all the time, and sometimes it's not always nice. So whenever I say something not so nice to myself, I always try to stop and take a minute and rephrase it. Um, or if other people do it too, I say something because I'm that kind of friend. I'm like that kind of person who will hear something that you say and I'm like, excuse me, what did you just say? It's like that loving confrontation. Like my friend referred to herself as a derogatory term twice in one sentence. Um, so I was like, call yourself that one more time, see what happens. Because I will throw my hands.
Loving
And
threat.
so, yes, lovingly threaten. And she was like, I'm a smart person, but I make silly decisions sometimes. And I was like, okay, that's better. um,
That's great.
so rephrase that self-deprecation because
Mhm,
it's not serving you any purpose other than to deter you from your goals.
mhm.
Talk to yourself like you would talk to your pet. You know, if I spoke to myself like I spoke to my cat son, I would be the handsomest boy in all the world. Every time I see him, I'm like, "Hi, handsome. You're so sweet." You know, I go into that cat voice.
Mhm.
Um, if you just like spoke to yourself, like maybe every time you compliment your dog, you could compliment yourself. I've been trying to do that actually because
Mhm.
just Bambino could just look at me and I'm like, oh, you're so cute. He's not doing anything.
Right, right. Oh, oh, I thought of something when you were talking about that. So that phrase that magicians use, abracadabra, like the whole whatever. Um, the meaning behind that is so fascinating. So it means what I say, I create. Amazing, right? Like I didn't know that until
Wow.
randomly, one of those random Google searches.
Yeah,
But
falling down a magic rabbit hole.
yes, yeah, of course. But I think that's like so it makes so much sense with what you're saying here too, because the more you're repeating these kind of phrases to yourself, the more you're speaking in that way to yourself, the more you're creating like that narrative, that identity. So I think it is easy, especially now. We live in depression meme culture right now, where
Mm-mm.
there's a lot of like humor that goes along with that, but enough of the repetition of it. I guess I wonder, like, does that lead people to feeling more harshly about themselves or be more harsh to themselves because of that? So just a little caution with that. I always found that really interesting.
Yeah. And a good segue into the next point. The law of attraction, people typically know about that right now. If you're not sure what that is, definitely engage in some research about that. My idea of the law of attraction is that you speak into the universe what is given back to you, kind of like what Kyle was saying. So, manifestation and the law of attraction are pretty rampant within the mainstream media for good reason. The more you say something about yourself, the more it becomes true. Obviously, it's not like if you say I can fly every day, that suddenly you'll be able to fly. But just
If only.
realistically, uh, honestly, if I could fly, I would fly to a warmer state.
Yep. Yep. Short trips,
Not Florida, but um oh boy, yeah. But when you speak about yourself negatively, you genuinely feel that way. And when you do the opposite, amazing things can happen. So think of some positive affirmations to say to yourself every day and find a time to do that. You could be saying them while you get ready, while you are just taking a break during the day, before you go to sleep. Some examples that I use are I love myself more and more each day. That one has really been impactful for me.
Mm.
I started saying that about, I want to say a month ago, I started saying that every day. And I genuinely feel that way because I was loving myself more and more every day. I'm hilarious. I love spending time with myself.
It's
Um,
awesome.
It's so great, and it's like I enjoy my own company, and I was like, "Wow, I do feel like this," so I'm just gonna keep saying it, and the
Mhm.
feeling is still alive. I love myself more and more each day. Another example, I am worthy of good things. And just another very simple one, I am loved. So speak that out into the universe
Mm,
and it will be reflected back to you. You have to believe it, you know? If you don't believe
mhm.
it, then obviously it's not going to work. So
Yep.
believe in yourself.
Be open to that belief sticking.
hmm So another side quest, prompt number 4, pause and reflect. How can I show myself more love? What do I do or say to myself that makes me feel less than? And how can I change this behavior to make myself feel more loved? We all deserve love, so how can you love yourself better? And I'll read that again because there were a few things in there. How can I show myself more love? What do I do or say to myself that makes me feel less than? And how can I change this behavior to make myself feel more loved? Take a minute. Or if you want to keep going and you're back, there's a challenge I have for you as well.
Ooh,
Every
side
day
quest
for a week,
challenge.
challenger. Every day for a week, write one thing that you like about yourself. Um, you can do this like just by writing it down. I am an avid bullet journal enthusiast, and I've actually been using my bullet journal. It's cute as heck.
It is.
It's Kyle's
I'm
jealous.
super jealous.
It's space themed because loving yourself is out of this world.
Oh.
I'll see myself out. But I have a spread in there, and I just wrote it at the top in a really cute font, like things I love about myself. And so then every day I just draw a cute little thing or write some words on there. I actually have my bullet journal right here. So let me read some of them to give you some examples. Just got to flip through it. I have so many things in here. Okay, so things I love about me is the title. On here, I have some really easy things like my eye color. You know, I think my eyes are really pretty. Um, and then I drew a little chef's hat with the word cooking because I really like to cook and I'm good at it.
Awesome.
Um, but some more things that I put on here, like my ability to think ahead and prepare for anything and care for my future self. Like, that's a very introspective thought that I had recently, so I wrote it down. Um, Also, like my sense of humor, I'm hilarious. So just like little things like that, they really add up.
Mm,
And this has also been helping me feel just like really good about myself. So I
mhm,
highly recommend that tactic, whether you just write a list or you make it look pretty.
definitely. I think it's so good too because, well, at least during this time with like quarantine and being so isolated and separate, I think sometimes it's been really hard for people to feel self-assured right now because we're like, do those people still like me? Am I still like worth being around? A lot of people start to question that when they're more isolated. So I think those things can be really helpful for self assurance because we do need that. We have wonderful things to offer to others, to ourselves. We have a lot of worth. So it's good to have those reminders. I like it. All right. Next portion of the show, do or do not. That's it. That's the one. Uh, so let's start with do use the compassion you give to your friends and other support in your life to yourself. You deserve that just as much as they do.
hmm
Um, and do not think that you are undeserving of the same love because you definitely are. You are giving it to others. You also deserve it from yourself.
Yes, if you're capable of giving that kind of love, then you're definitely worthy of receiving it.
Without a doubt. Next, do notice when you say something harsh to yourself. Put an example here. So you forgot to send an email, and in your stress, you might say, how did I forget to send that? I'm so stupid. Do make space to reframe that statement. So I would say something to myself at this point, like, I'm annoyed that I didn't send this email. I've been juggling a lot of things today. When someone is stressed, it makes sense that they would forget one thing. I accept myself even though I wasn't able to do that.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
I
think it's
accept
good to have
myself.
those.
I accept myself even when I make mistakes is
Yes.
what you had on there. That's very powerful because we don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, again, that reassurance, like helping yourself recognize that things happen and they won't be perfect, but you can
Mhm.
love yourself despite that.
Yeah, and that refers back to my operational definition of self-love. And I said that, it's like removing yourself from the situation. You made a mistake. You are not the mistake.
Yes.
Very important and something that I used to do because I have like persistent depressive disorder. And, it was really bad for a while. And in the very worst part of it, my counselor, who I was seeing at the time, said, I think you identify as someone like who is depressed. Like I was taking on that identity of depression. I wasn't saying like I am a person who deals with depression.
Mm.
It was like I was combining my own identity with my depressive symptoms. And it was just totally taking over my life. And, that's like a very extreme example, but it's the same, like all the little things really make a difference. So you are not your mistake. You are not the embarrassing moment you had. Like you are you, and you engage in these activities and things happen.
Definitely. I like that example. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. Another one, do add something new to your self-care routine. We could all add a little spice to our routines, especially since we've been spending so much time with ourselves during the pandemic. Just find something small, like having a cup of tea before bed, or I don't know, drinking water as soon as you get up. It doesn't have to involve drinks, but my self-care involves a lot of different things. So just find something small to do. Do not try to add a million things at once, though, because doing so would overload you, and then you're less likely to accomplish your goals when you take on too many things at once. So don't overwhelm yourself. Just take it one step at a time and then slowly add things.
Yes, very guilty of that. I'm one of those like extreme correct everything at once kind of people. So sometimes it's nice to say, I don't have to do all of it right now. I could just
Yeah.
do one. That's okay. All right. And then I guess to start wrapping up today's episode, we have some DIY interventions for you.
Interventions.
So, number one, make a list of the things you appreciate about yourself. I
Mhm.
think that can include so many different things. It could be your personality traits, it could be the interests or hobbies that you have, it could be physical traits, it could be your strengths, it could be the things that connect you to other people. Shannon gave like so many examples before, so I think there's a lot to choose from. But really, like, give yourself that attention to appreciate yourself, and those little things about you that make you you. And number two, imagine and externalize your self critic. That little nagging, annoying voice that likes to chime in and tell us that we're not deserving of our self love or that we shouldn't be kind to ourselves. It's a nice little chatterbox. So, when I say externalize, I mean inside out this. If you haven't seen that Pixar movie, that's not going to make any sense to you, but
Oh,
create it as
such a
a
good movie.
character. Yes. Create your self critic as its own character. What does it look like? Does it have little pointy horns and whatever? Is it an amoeba? Does it look like some weird character? I don't know. Does it look like a person? What does it look like? Give it a visual. And then what does it sound like? What are the things that it says the most often? And you know this, like when you have friends and family, you can almost like predict their phrases that they say every now and again. Your inner critic definitely has that as well. So what does it say? What does it sound like? What are the things that it tries to say to convince you? to not love yourself. And then on the flip end of that, if you're feeling real creative this week, I would say do the opposite. Imagine what your self-love would look like as a character. Shannon, you already kind of hit on this. What does love look like for you? And
Wow.
amazing, right? So if that was its own character, its own personality, what would it look like? What would it say? How would it help to encourage or inspire you? How is it going to be all of the support and hype that you need to feel good throughout the day? So we've got some nice creative exercises for you.
Yes, they're super fun.
Mhm.
It's funny because like I was just revisiting my externalization for my negativity. So like my
Mhm.
little lemon boy dude, I just drew this like very sad looking, tired lemon. Um, that represents my self-critic. And I honestly, ever since doing that activity, it's been so much easier to shut him down.
Mhm.
So it's great. Great activity. Highly recommend.
Yes, definitely. You probably saw similar things if you're on TikTok of this going around, like having your depression named something or whatever. There's so many variations, so make it your own.
hmm And then now we've got our quotes that we like. My quote that I chose, oh, I don't know who it's by, but it's your soul will never be fully nourished by anyone's love but your own. And I think we have definitely touched upon this a bit in our podcast. You know, you deserve your own love from yourself. And, you know, that's what you need. You don't need that love from another partner. It's nice to have, and it's great to supplement the love you already have of yourself. You know, someone can support you, but someone can't be your total foundation.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, that hits hard. So for my quote, this is from Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, who I will put in the resources for this episode. They did a lot of work on self-compassion, and they have some workbooks that they've put out that I love and I find really interesting. So this is from one of their workbooks. It goes, mindfulness invites us to be open to suffering with loving, spacious awareness, right? So we feel the suffering and we're aware of it. We can recognize it. Self-compassion adds to be kind to yourself in the midst of suffering. So can you be aware that you're going through a hard time and still be kind to yourself during that? And I love that. I think that's the point where we have the ability to say, I'm going to treat myself well during this because this sucks.
That's great. That's a wonderful quote. Treat yourself well during this. That's perfect. Because, like I said earlier, like your version of self love ideally would probably look like you. So, you know, you're not the problem. You have a problem. So, just remove yourself from that and really just be yourself and love yourself. And there's just so much more that we could probably say about it, but our time is up for today. So,
Yep.
we may probably revisit this at some point during our other episodes this semester, just because this is like an excellent topic. This was a good
Yes.
podcast. Great job,
It was a great one. Good job, Shannon.
Kyle. Compliments. So that's it for today. Tune in on March 7th for episode 6, which will be about creativity, a topic we know very well.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes. That is very, very, very connected to our identities.
Some might say that we don't ever stop talking about it.
Obviously, as you've seen throughout this whole podcast.
Whatever works for us, you know, we got it.
That's it. That's it. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time. Well,
Over.
Yeah. Over and out.